My parents missed my wedding since I married before my perfect sister. Now, my parents skipped my wedding. Not because they couldn't be there, but because they couldn't stomach the thought of their imperfect daughter marrying before their golden child. And that shocking betrayal was just the beginning of their carefully constructed family image crumbling to dust. It's been 8 months since I, Rebecca, at 32, walked down the aisle. Everyone was there, except for my parents and my sister, Molin. My parents' absence was a jarring shock, but Molin's? Honestly, I wasn't entirely surprised. We've never truly seen eye to eye, but given our history, maybe I should have seen it coming. Let me give you some background on my family. You see, Molin, who's 30, has always been exceptional. I can't entirely blame my parents for favoring her. She truly was the center of attention, excelling at everything she touched. From winning every spelling bee in science fair as a child to becoming class president, valedictorian, and prom queen in high school. She was tall, slender, effortlessly attractive, and even pursued modeling in college before getting her business degree. I still remember the lavish party my parents threw to celebrate her first professional modeling job during her sophomore year. Her framed headshot still hangs in our living room, directly above the fireplace. The very same year, I earned my degree in computer science. Their response, a dismissive, well done, before they immediately dove back into organizing Molin's next photo session. After graduating, she landed a job at a prominent company and rocketed up the corporate ladder. At 30, she already commands a corner office and a corporate car, a senior executive. Me, I'm a mid-level software developer at a respectable tech firm. I love my work, it's a good career, but it's not the kind of job that makes parents boast at family gatherings. Beyond our careers, there were the constant comparisons. I'm bigger and shorter than Molin. Growing up, my mother's crude remarks about my appearance were relentless. She'd sign me up for workout classes I never wanted, put me on endless diets, always saying things like, Molin never struggles with her weight, or you could look as nice as your sister if you just put in a little more effort. Each word was a tiny cut, chipping away at my self-worth, even if by high school I'd learned to outwardly ignore them. Over the years, I just accepted these stark differences. I came to terms with the painful truth that my parents would never take as much delight in my accomplishments as they did in Molin's. What choice did I have? 4 years, I chased their approval, enrolling in classes they suggested, joining clubs they encouraged, even briefly attempting modeling, a spectacular failure Molin has never let me forget. But nothing was ever enough. I was just the second daughter, and they were completely enamored with my sister's shine. Sometime in my mid-20s, I gave up trying to impress them. I focused on building my own life, growing professionally on my own terms, and forming bonds with people who genuinely respected me for who I am. And honestly, things improved. Knowing my parents were obsessed with appearances, I kept my interactions with them superficial to prevent conflict. During mandatory Christmas dinners and family get-togethers, I'd simply nod and grin while they raved about Molin's latest promotion, boyfriend, or exotic vacation. Since they had Molin to swoon over, they never seemed to notice my emotional distance. Then, at a computer conference, through a mutual friend, I met my husband. He actually saw me. Unlike my family, he truly liked my dry sense of humor, my coding skills, and yes, even my body type. From the very beginning, he never once suggested I change or compared me to anyone else. After 4 wonderful years of dating, he proposed when we were just alone at home, enjoying takeaway and our favorite TV show. It was perfect. Naturally, I told my parents I was engaged last year. Their response should have been my first clue. There was no congratulation, just an unsettling stillness. My mother then questioned if I was certain. I wanted to jump right in, and actually suggested I might want to improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father remained mostly silent. At the engagement party, my husband, bless him, noticed their odd reaction, though I was too overwhelmed to fully grasp it at the time. They huddled in a corner for most of the evening, glued to my mother's phone. My husband later told me he'd overheard them talking to Molin, who was clearly crying. He vaguely heard them say this wasn't the plan, and how they never expected Rebecca to get married first. Wedding planning was a series of minor heartbreaks. My mother, who already had countless Pinterest boards for Molin's future wedding despite her not even being engaged yet, showed absolutely no interest in helping me choose a dress or a venue. When I finally found my dress, a straightforward, exquisite A-line gown that made me feel truly beautiful, my mother merely commented that it was practical and suitable for my figure. Most of the preparations ended up being a collaborative effort between me and my future mother-in-law, who treated me like the daughter she'd always wanted. By the way, if you're still with me on this roller coaster of family drama, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. My husband and I meticulously reviewed and double-checked the guest list, ensuring no one was overlooked before sending out both electronic and paper wedding invitations. I was absolutely certain my parents received theirs. The EVs came with red receipts. After realizing they hadn't RSVP'd, I called, texted, and emailed them multiple times. My messages were either ignored or met with evasive responses about how busy they were and needing to check their schedules. I was too engrossed in wedding preparations to waste much energy worrying about it. My in-laws were incredibly supportive, offering assistance with everything from seating charts to floral arrangements. Even at the lovely bridal shower hosted by my husband's sister, the painfully obvious absence of my own family was never explicitly mentioned. The wedding day itself was beautiful. We had a laid-back afternoon celebration in a garden setting after a heartfelt morning ceremony. Everyone commented on how content and in love we looked, and it was true. But there were moments when their absence felt like a physical anguish, a sharp, aching void, seeing those front row seats empty, or missing out on a father-daughter dance. After the honeymoon, I demanded answers. When I finally reached them on the phone, they launched into a tirade. They claimed they were deeply hurt that they had never gotten a formal invitation. My mother ranted about how careless I was, how she'd always dreamed of helping organize her daughter's wedding, and how she couldn't comprehend why I would deliberately leave them out of such a significant occasion. I was utterly perplexed, certain we had sent both invitations. During the call, I actually checked our records and confirmed we had, even verifying physical delivery. I didn't confront their blatant gaslighting. I simply mumbled an apology for the error and hung up. It was later that my husband pointed out the pattern. The way they seemed surprised, not delighted, when we told them we were engaged. The endless excuses they made to avoid helping with the wedding planning. He hadn't brought it up earlier, not wanting to add to my stress, but in retrospect, it was crystal clear. The idea that I, the less successful daughter, was getting married before their beloved Mullen was simply too much for them to bear. Their behavior merely validated what I'd always suspected but resisted, that I would never measure up to my sister in their eyes. The most depressing realization was that even my wedding day, a supposed celebration of love and new beginnings, had become just another battleground in their never-ending war to preserve their ideal family image, with Mullen at its perfectly polished core. Recently, I heard through the family grapevine that Mullen got engaged to someone she's been dating for a year. And just as I expected, my parents are openly gushing about organizing an elaborate wedding for her. They're already boasting about securing upscale venues and luxury gowns, and my mother is taking Mullen to private fittings at exclusive boutiques. All the mother-daughter time I was never allowed. But here's the twist. A surprising number of our family members are suddenly refusing to attend Mullen's wedding and engagement party. It seems my parents' actions at my wedding became a rather hot topic of conversation within the family. When relatives ask me why my parents weren't at my wedding, I simply tell them what I believe to be true. They couldn't bear it when I married before their beloved daughter. I present the facts as I perceive them, without embellishment or an attempt to win sympathy. A few days ago, my parents contacted me, accusing me of deliberately trying to sabotage Mullen's wedding. They claim the relatives they've spoken to are using flimsy excuses to avoid her wedding-related festivities. My cousin, to whom my sister vented, apparently told her that people are reluctant to come because they've heard about how my parents treated me. My parents insist I'm spreading false stories out of envy for my sister's impending lavish wedding. The problem is, I'm just telling people the truth about what happened. Perhaps if the truth makes them look bad, they should examine their own behavior instead of blaming me for the consequences. As things continue to unfold, I'm finding it increasingly difficult to maintain even a superficial relationship with my parents. Their behavior during my wedding finally made it unequivocally clear that I would never be enough for them, no matter what I did. Their absence at my wedding is no longer the hardest part. It's coming to terms with the fact that I never had the kind, encouraging parents I always yearned for. I'm focusing on building a life with someone who genuinely appreciates me for who I am. Since my last post, 2 weeks ago, a lot has transpired. Ultimately, after reading all your incredibly encouraging remarks, I decided it was time to confront my parents face-to-face about their actions at my wedding and their current accusations that I was trying to ruin my sister's special day. During our phone call, they immediately began making accusations, claiming I was jealous of Molin and had planned this whole thing to spite her. But this time, I did something I had never done before. I agreed with them. Not in the way they expected, of course. Instead of defending myself, as I usually would, I said, "You're correct. I am envious, not of Molin's career, not her accomplishments, not her appearance. I'm envious of the unwavering love and support you've shown her, which you never even made an effort to show me." There was a stunned silence on the line. Then, my mother started claiming I was exaggerating, that they had always treated us equally. Something inside me snapped at that moment. Feelings that had been repressed for years came flooding out. I recounted every birthday where Molin's latest success had overshadowed my own accomplishments. How my mother had canceled my high school graduation dinner for Molin's modeling callback. How Molin's prom dress had cost more than an entire year of my college textbooks. I pressed on, even as my father tried to cut me off, accusing me of sensationalizing. I spoke about the agony of watching them spend years organizing my sister's fictitious wedding while showing absolutely no interest in my own. I told them how painful it was to see their seats vacant at my wedding, and how my mother-in-law had to step in and help with everything, from planning to dress shopping. Their reaction was incredibly telling. Instead of accepting any of my arguments, they flipped it back on me. "Why did you never speak up if you felt this way?" my mother insisted, as if I hadn't tried to talk to them for years. My father went on to say that by discussing these emotions with our family members, I was being unjust and spiteful. Then, my mother said something that finally clarified everything. "We always knew you were insecure about her success, but we never imagined you'd go to such lengths as to try to ruin Molin's wedding out of spite. This is not how we brought you up." In that moment, I realized they couldn't even hear me. They genuinely believed that their behavior and my feelings had nothing to do with the situation. It was all about Molin's reaction. Even during this discussion about their absence from my wedding, their primary concern was her impending nuptials, not the hurt they had caused me. For the first time in my life, I didn't try to smooth things over. I didn't retract or apologize. Instead, I expressed my thoughts to them directly. "You're correct on one point. I was raised by you. You instilled in me the belief that I would never measure up, that Molin's accomplishments would always be more significant than mine, that upholding your ideal family image was more important than my feelings. However, you also taught me that I deserve better than this, which was something you didn't mean to teach me." There was a long pause before my father spoke. His voice was cool, collected. "Maybe it's time for us to stop acting like we're bad parents, since you've already determined that we are, and you obviously take pleasure in seeing us suffer. Since you are family, we assumed you would assist in resolving this issue, but it is clear that you have made your own decisions." My mother delivered the final blow. "Perhaps you simply couldn't cope with not being the center of attention, even though we always tried to treat you both fairly, Rebecca. That's not our fault. You made the decision to play the victim." I didn't argue. Why would it matter? Everything I had been saying had just been validated by them. They were utterly incapable of admitting their involvement in any of it. Even at this last, desperate discussion, I simply said goodbye and hung up. And to my surprise, I felt a profound sense of relief. Tears were shed, to be sure, but they weren't the frantic, heartbreaking ones I remembered from my early years. These were liberating tears. For the first time, I had expressed everything I needed to say without holding back or feeling guilty about how I felt. Later that evening, my husband saw me gazing at the sunset from our back porch. He sat next to me and grasped my hand without a word. "They're never going to change, are they?" I asked him after a time. "No," he said, squeezing my hand gently, "but you have, and that is what counts." He is correct. I've changed. The young child who frantically tried to win her parents' approval is no longer there. The woman who came out of that last conversation no longer needs their validation. Although acknowledging that my parents will never be the people I need them to be is painful, it is not as painful as holding out hope that they would change. For the first time, I don't really care what happens with my sister's wedding or the family drama. I've had my say, and they now have to deal with whatever comes next. The most peculiar aspect, I feel as though a burden I've carried my entire life has finally been lifted. Although it's not the happy ending I had hoped for with my parents, perhaps it was the one I truly needed. The ability to quit striving for love that ought to have come naturally. 3 days have passed since my run-in with my parents, and things have taken a surprising turn. Mullen decided to get involved in the drama, but her strategy failed horribly. My sister sent me a painstakingly composed message yesterday morning. Her condescending tone, honed over the years, was evident in every word. What you said to your parents was totally inappropriate. They have helped us through every stage of our lives and given us everything. You cannot simply blame them for being poor parents because you are insecure about the decisions you have made in life. She continued, blending moral superiority with covert jabs. I understand that your wedding wasn't exactly what you had envisioned, but that doesn't mean you should try to destroy mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that honors those of us who have put in a lot of effort to meet specific standards, Rebecca. Not everything needs to be a contest. I didn't bother to answer. I've discovered that interacting with her merely provides her with more ammunition. After years of putting up with her manipulative conduct, I just blocked her number instead. Mullen has never been one to tolerate being ignored, so I assumed that would be the end of it. A few hours later, my husband called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely speak. Apparently, Mullen, unable to reach me directly, found his personal number, probably through a common acquaintance, and sent him a string of texts outlining the precise reasons why our sisterly relationship has never been good. She began her initial communication to him in a sufficiently professional manner. As Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family's well-being, I feel compelled to reach out. However, it quickly devolved into her actual motivations. She informed my husband that he had an obligation to help me behave in a more suitable manner because he was the new man in Rebecca's life. The messages became increasingly patronizing. Family dynamics are complex, she told my husband, a professional software architect with an MBA, adding that someone with Rebecca's sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. She advised him to help me see reason before I irreparably harm family relationships. But her attempt to play on what she believed to be his social climbing impulses was the true kicker. In fact, she wrote, "Surely you understand that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future. Rebecca's behavior is only hurting her own prospects, and by extension yours." Having always been able to see through Mullen's facade, my spouse found her attempt at manipulation utterly humorous. He particularly enjoyed her presumption that her business rank or the prospect of networking opportunities would somehow impress him. In his own words, "She really doesn't know me at all, does she?" We went over the messages together when I got home that night. Instead of feeling offended or upset, I was laughing with my husband. Seeing Mullen's deceptive methods exposed, particularly when they were aimed at someone who was totally impervious to them, was incredibly liberating. I learned something significant about my sister as a result of this encounter. Despite all of her achievements and success, she is still that insecure adolescent who needs to tear others down in order to feel superior. It's clear how little she knows about good relationships that she believed she could control me by manipulating my husband when her direct approach failed. She swiftly turned to trying to use my husband against me, which was the most revealing aspect. She used to do precisely that in high school. She attempted to turn my friends against me when she was unable to bully me directly. Different decade, same strategies. With this fresh viewpoint, I now understand how Mullen's actions went beyond simple sibling rivalry. Throughout our early years, she made a concerted effort to keep her status as the favorite child, always telling our parents and me how much better she was. She had to overshadow whatever I accomplished. She had to point out my shortcomings to everyone I made friends with. My response to her games is different now. Her messages would have caused me to fall into self-doubt 10 years ago. I would have been upset and hurt 5 years ago. Today, simply put, I'm sick of the drama and find her blatant attempts at manipulation amusing. My husband's response was ideal. Rather than becoming embroiled in her drama, he merely responded, "Thank you for your concern about Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not managing her behavior. I think it's best if you direct any future concerns to Rebecca directly. Have a nice day." Mullen sent one last message after not receiving the desired response. "I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, Mullen's attempt to assist has further strengthened my resolve to keep my distance from the destructive dynamics of my family. Nothing has changed, as evidenced by her messages to my spouse. She is still the same cunning individual who feels the need to dictate every story, and who perceives any departure from her ideal family script as a danger. Knowing that her attempts at persuasion were so totally unsuccessful is perhaps the most pleasant aspect of the entire incident. She succeeded in bringing my spouse and I closer together rather than causing us to drift apart. Totally unconcerned by her fears of social repercussions, we joked about her texts and planned a weekend trip that evening. I've come to understand that true family isn't about upholding facades or dictating stories. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting one another when someone tries to manipulate you, even your own sister. I'm more certain than ever that I'd be better off keeping a safe distance from Mullen's wedding drama instead of getting sucked into my family's never-ending power struggles. My husband and I have made the decision to concentrate on creating our own happiness. Success is said to be the best form of retaliation, but I'm coming to realize that real success isn't about impressing people. It's about accepting your decisions and surrounding yourself with individuals that encourage, rather than impede, your own development. I feel more successful than ever by that metric. 2 weeks after my sister's unsuccessful attempt to control my husband, things have taken even more unanticipated turns. The situation is becoming even worse, despite my parents' desperate attempts to repair their reputation. I found out through various family ties that my parents have been on a mad quest to correct the narrative. They've been phoning each relative separately, accusing me of spreading vile tales because I'm envious of Mullen's ideal wedding. They claim that I'm just resentful since her wedding will be far more sophisticated and gorgeous than mine was. According to their most recent, increasingly bizarre tale, I purposefully left them out of my wedding so I could act like the victim. It's almost comical that they still reside in the same home they've owned for 30 years and have had the same email addresses since the invention of email, yet they're claiming I sent their invitation to an old email address and an old physical address. The good news is that their attempts to limit the damage are failing miserably. Our family members don't believe it. In fact, a number of relatives have started sharing their personal accounts of my parents' long history of partiality. According to one aunt, my mother had previously engaged in similar antics at other family weddings in an effort to guarantee that Mullen was always the life of the party. The way my extended family has reacted to my parents' manipulation is the most fulfilling development. Important family members, some of whom were expected to have significant parts in the event, have completely stopped supporting Mullen's wedding. They may even lose access to the exclusive venue they were able to secure through family ties. Even a family friend's luxury garment business has unexpectedly experienced scheduling conflicts when it comes to Mullen's dress. Things reached a breaking point at a family get-together last weekend. It seems that when someone innocently inquired about my wedding pictures, my mother became visibly upset out of jealousy. She started a defensive tirade about how I had changed after getting married and was attempting to destroy the family. Her public tantrum backfired spectacularly, stunning a number of relatives who were unaware of the circumstances and further damaging their carefully maintained reputation. It's especially ironic that my parents' frantic efforts to maintain their ideal family facade are precisely the reason it's now falling apart. Each time they attempt to justify their absence from my wedding, they wind up disclosing more about who they really are. The more they attempt to portray me as the bad guy, the more people are becoming aware of their deception. Family members are now picking sides after previously remaining impartial. Recently, even my father's brother, who had always kept silent to maintain harmony, personally apologized for not speaking up sooner about how they treated me. He has made the firm decision not to go to any of Mullen's wedding-related festivities with his family. I don't have to answer any of this explicitly. The truth is taking care of everything for me. Mullen And my parents always wind up revealing more of their destructive conduct when they attempt to twist the tale. It turns out that all those years of remaining silent and putting up with their treatment in an effort to keep the peace was really just a way of allowing their actions. My husband said it best. They constructed a facade of the ideal family over many years, but it was based on emotional manipulation and partiality. Eventually, it was going to fall apart. Personally, I'm doing better than ever. I no longer have to worry about attempting to win my parents' approval. The stress of controlling Mullen's emotions has completely subsided. For the first time in my life, I'm not concerned about upholding their ideal family image. Sometimes, the best retaliation is just letting the truth speak for itself rather than taking direct action. I'm incredibly grateful for giving me the courage to advocate for myself. You have no idea how much your guidance and encouragement have meant to me along this path. Sometimes, you need to see what true family support looks like from strangers you met online. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. Have you ever had to choose your own peace over a toxic family dynamic? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know.